Hello, and welcome to the Pixelated Sausage Show. Hi. How is everyone doing? Hopefully well. I am, of course, your host, Mark Kuznez, and if you are a regular watcher of the show and not listener, you will notice immediately that there is something very different. Yes, I got a haircut. I could not take it any longer. My journey trying to grow my hair out lasted about 9 months? 10 months? No, not 8 months? I think it was October of last year. So in that 9-ish range. I just couldn't take it anymore. My hair is just not meant to be long. It is not. And maybe there is a routine, a hair whatever process that would make it not look like garbage for 66 to 75% of the time until it gets oily enough and I like it, but then it is so oily and in need of a wash that I can only enjoy my hair for about a day or two before having to reset the cycle of depression and discomfort and wanting to go nowhere because I don't want to go outside with my awful hair. I'm not 100% satisfied with my current hair. The haircut is maybe a bit shorter than I would have liked and not exactly what I was looking for, but it'll grow soon enough, and I'm sure at some point it'll hit a style, a length that I like. But it is what it is. At the very least, it is better than me with the longer hair, so I can accept that and just weather the storm until it gets to a more pleasant for me length. But speaking of not so pleasantries, even though I was just talking about how I got my hair cut and it's now more pleasant, I can't just jump right into what I've been playing without talking about the most recent round of layoffs at Microsoft. There were many layoffs, not all of them. It was spread across the entire company. But, of course, Xbox is part of that company, so there were some layoffs and some significant layoffs at Xbox. We had Turn 10 losing half its studio, half its employees, roughly. I don't know the exact numbers. Everwild was canceled. Perfect Dark was canceled, and their studio, their in-house studio, The Initiative, was closed because that game was also being co-developed with Crystal Dynamics. And then there are some other projects that we didn't know about that were canceled. It came out that the follow-up MMO RPG from the ZeniMax studio that made The Elder Scrolls Online, that was canceled, and I think there was some kind of code name for that came out. It's not Blackhawk, but something along those lines. Today I just saw a report about John Romero's first-person shooter he's working on is now in need of funding because of the layoffs and shake-up at Xbox, because I guess they were funding that. I'm not even sure what that project was. And I'm sure there might be some more things that come out before the week is over. I'm recording this on Thursday morning, so just to give you a time frame in case stuff comes out after this. I am surprised that State of Decay was not canceled alongside of these cancellations. And it's just a massive bummer, and it feels never ending. It's frustrating on so many levels. It's frustrating as just a person who likes games and is excited about games and wants to see games come out and play them, for me, Perfect Dark looked like my kind of game. The concept gameplay, which is what I always took it as, they showed last year, looked so much better than I ever could have expected for that game. Because in my experience with Perfect Dark, having played Perfect Dark Zero, and I can't remember if I completed it, but playing the Xbox Live Arcade version of the original game, I was not a fan. So I was in no way excited about the prospect of a new Perfect Dark game. But then they showed that footage, and it looked way more like a Deus Ex game than what I remembered a Perfect Dark game being. It didn't look as good as Deus Ex, but since we don't have Deus Ex anymore and will likely never get another one, so I still have my fingers crossed that maybe some genie fairy godmother will make a remake or remaster of the first game. I like the second game as well. I'm a big defender of Invisible War, but I would love to see a remaster or remake of the first game by Night Dive Studios, akin to either, again, if it's a remake, what they did for System Shock, or if it's a remaster, what they did for System Shock 2. Either thing, I don't care. I would just love the ability to play Deus Ex on modern hardware and to have it look a bit nicer, because it is one of my favorite games of all time. I adore it. And that got me excited for Perfect Dark. But again, what they showed last year, to me, looked like a gameplay concept video. It did not look like real gameplay. It didn't come across to me like someone actually playing the game. The most apt comparison I would probably throw out there would be those who have been around for a little while. The Watch Dogs gameplay footage from, I'm not sure, I'm assuming that was when it was initially revealed, and it looks very good. But of course, that ultimately was not indicative of the final product, and that was controversial in the sense that people, when they got their hands on the actual game, were very disappointed. I still enjoy the game, or something you can look at like with No Man's Sky. So I, as excited as I wasn't yet fully confident that that was what the game was actually going to be. But now we'll never know. And that's sad. People losing their jobs sucks. That whole part is frustrating. The fact that we won't have these games to play now. I really wanted to know what Everwild actually was. I think for those who were excited about the game, it was more so being excited about the idea, because none of us really knew what the game was. And it's been dark so long that the double-sided, double-bladed, whatever thing of this whole situation is the fact that in some ways I'm not surprised. But before I get to that, the real frustrating thing is that Microsoft just reported, I think, record profits. Their stock price went up to its highest price ever. I don't know all the details if it was both of those happening or one or the other, but they're definitely not on a downward trend. So why is it that companies, and this isn't just a Microsoft thing, it's something we are aware of being in this space, the video game space. So we're very focused on this, and Microsoft being the huge company it is, that is not just Xbox, we see it happen more often with them, and they have more rounds of it, whereas smaller companies will either have a singular round, because if they had more than one round, they would just be gone for good. So it's just Microsoft being what they are, having this repetition of this happening. But I don't understand. I mean, business is business, and it's why I can never be a business person, why I would never even humor the idea of going for a business degree or wanting to get into business, because the whole mentality of more, nothing ever being enough, it does not compute with me. I don't understand the drive for increased profits over and over. Why can't you look at it and you say to yourself, you're doing so well, right? So why can't you take that and use it to retain your employees, keep them safe, give them that confidence in their company, make them feel, I mean, like, how do you work at a company like that where you constantly feel, even if you are in a role, I have a friend who works there, even if you're in a role where it's pretty stable and it's kind of a no cuts type of job, how do you feel good working at a company that is constantly cutting things here and there? It's just, it's fucking frustrating. And it's disheartening. It makes it hard to love this industry or want to be a part of it, because you know the games you're playing and enjoying, they very well may have been made by people who no longer have jobs for this reason or that reason. I didn't like Hi-Fi Rush, but a lot of people, well, Hi-Fi Rush maybe isn't the best example because they ultimately were saved by, was it Crafton? I can't remember. But it fucking sucks. But to look at it from a non-emotional state, I guess, I get the cuts. Perfect Dark, the initiative was formed 7 years ago. What have they done in those 7 years? They have worked on they've worked on Perfect Dark, which we have no idea the state it was in. So when it would potentially be releasing may have still been 3+ years away. So they've been working on a game potentially for 10+ years with nothing to show for themselves. So just money going in, nothing coming back. I don't like that we'll never see Perfect Dark now, but I get it. With Everwild, what I heard a few years ago was that things were not so great and they had to completely start over from scratch. That's not great. And the fact that we've never heard anything about it or seen even a concept trailer or anything since that initial reveal. The writing was on the wall for years. So finally coming out and just saying this is canceled. Okay, yeah, I get it. Turn 10 losing half their employees. I think some people confuse or conflate Turn 10 and Playground. Playground seemingly fine. Playground being the makers of Forza Horizon and currently Fable as well. But Turn 10, just Forza Motorsport. And I can understand laying off half of that studio, because as someone who loved the Motorsport series since 2, and I've been all in on them and played so many of them, or I played all of them to varying degrees depending on the version. Like 5 was fine for a launch thing. Played a shitload of 7. Forza Motorsport, the current one, was, for me at least, incredibly underwhelming and disappointing. And I have put in way less time into it than maybe any other Forza. I'm trying to think of maybe another Motorsport didn't have me playing it as much, but I think even something like 5 that was very light and very much a launch title, I'm pretty sure I've spent more time in that. For a game that they took extra time off of to really make special, for it to be this current gen title, and you all assume, I assume, that it's going to be this showcase for the console. It didn't live up to any of that. And it felt like a stripped down version of 7. I missed what was in 7 that wasn't there. I didn't like the structure of it. It just, despite feeling great, the structure and everything was just not what I was looking for. So I get it, because I don't think Forza Motorsport did what they expected. I wouldn't be surprised if it isn't. I wouldn't be surprised if people are still playing 7 over Motorsport, or just went on to Gran Turismo or something else. Because I, being a huge fan, it was maybe my most anticipated game of that year, and then nothing. But it sucks. It sucks, and I don't know what else there is to say about the whole thing, the whole situation. I'll always be an Xbox first player, because this is where I built up my library. I love the controller vastly over the DualSense, but I couldn't in any way tell someone, unless you want to get in on Game Pass, really, if I wasn't an Xbox player, I wouldn't be a PlayStation player. I wouldn't be a Nintendo. I would just be a PC player. I think any serious gamer, not a casual gamer, the kind of people who would be listening to this, we all know the best place to play games, if you like it, if you have a good machine, or you just want to go the Steam Deck route or whatnot, the best place is PC. It is. You like the Xbox controller? You can use it. You like the DualSense controller? You can use it. Guess what? PlayStation games are there. Not all of them, and there is quite a delay, but a good chunk of them are there. There is Xbox games, of course, and if you want to go not certain routes, you could play Nintendo games. But don't do that. Don't do it. If you want to do that, buy the games physically and just feel okay with yourself. But I wouldn't do that. But yeah, that's enough of that. Let us get on to what I've been playing, and I've got a whole bunch to talk about, starting with Rooftops and Alleys, the parkour game. Skate, period. That skateboarding series that had 3 great games on the 360, well, on the PS3 as well, but that generation, and is currently going to get some kind of live service. I still don't believe it's ever going to actually happen, or it's going to come out and then die very quickly. That series. Well, what if instead of skateboarding, you were parkouring? Does that sound like a good time to you? If yes, you'll probably like Rooftops and Alleys, the parkour game, because that is essentially what it is. It's a little bit more stripped down in the sense that there's no narrative at all. And from what I can remember of Skate, there was a light narrative with, I think, that Bob Derek dude or something from some stupid MTV show where he was kind of a casual skateboarder, but probably had some stupid clothing line or bullshit, and he did gags or whatever with his big black bodyguard, I think. I don't know. I can't remember. But I think it was in Skate. You get none of that here in Rooftops and Alleys. But and the reason why I make the comparison is because Skate, for me, was very much so a casual skateboarding game. Unlike Tony Hawk, which was very much so about getting high scores and competing and going after these wild objectives and so on, Skate for me was giving me the ability to actually feel like a skateboarder with its more realistic mechanics and sense, maybe even with the camera perspective being this kind of follow low cam thing that I was doing. It made it so that I just liked being in these spaces and skating around, not thinking about going after a high score or doing anything other than just skating around, having a good time, using it as a chat room type game. And I loved it for that. I love the feel of it. I love the look of it, and loved it mechanically. And Rooftops and Allies is that. You have 6 environments. One's on this ship, this large type of cargo ship. One's in a kind of warehouse area. Another one's in a South American-ish town, and 3 others. And you just go in them and parkour around with more realistic, somewhat in-depth controls that feel very good. Each level is comprised of 5 time trials and 3 score rushes, trick rushes. Pretty self-explanatory. Time trials are multiple checkpoints you want to go through, reach the end under a certain time limit to get a bronze, silver, gold medal. And the same with trick is just you doing tricks in a certain amount of time with a designated area that's slowly closing in on you, and you're just trying to get the highest score possible to again get one of those 3 medals. And with each medal you earn, it unlocks new cosmetics for your character. And your character is this very kind of blocky techno looking thing, and that is the entire game. So it is somewhat light on content. You can play with up to 3 other people. You do it with randoms or people you know. I do kind of wish there was maybe a larger, or if they could somehow string all of the areas together for a lobby type system with 24 people in it or something along those lines. That could be fun. But it's still fun to just parkour around and chill, hang out in one of the areas with other people. But it feels good. The controls give you a lot of ability to make your parkouring flower. So it's not just about grabbing onto a ledge or jumping over things. You can flip over things. You could do somersaults and backflips and really get funky with your actions. And it's a nice game to chill out and relax in. I do think depending on you, and you should know what kind of person you are, you'll either be done with it the second you complete all the time trials and trick rushes and all of that, or even after that, you'll just use it as something that is kind of a breather in between quote unquote regular games. But I think it's a really fun game for what it is. I can't remember what the price is, but it might be something that, given it's somewhat not empty, but it not being the most replayable game, being somewhat light on content, it might be something to wait for a sale on. But if it's, I'd say $20, maybe $25. $25 might be pushing it for some people. I mean, you know if it's worth it for you. It is the kind of game that it would be ideal to get a demo of, but if they gave you a demo, then it could also kind of work against it in the sense that if people just like the mechanics, hey, I don't need the 5 other areas, I can just chill out in this demo area. That wouldn't be the best, but yeah. Rooftops and Allies, the parkour game, a solid time. Next, Warhammer 40k Darktide, the Arbites class? Arbites? Arbites class was just added to the game. If you don't know what Darktide is, it's essentially a Left 4 Dead like, but if you are more in the Warhammer universe, it is kind of a spiritual successor to the Vermintide games, which were based more in the fantasy side of Warhammer, and this is the 40k space marine type of thing. So you have guns now instead of just medieval-esque weapons, but also it's still very melee centric. The new Arbites class, though, it adds a few weapons, one being a pretty satisfying shotgun. I would, if we're doing a tier of the best shotguns in all games, I think it's a solid B shotgun with potential to be A with more play. But the big addition to it for me is this, I forget what it's called, but it's basically a like cybernetic dog, wolf type creature, animal that will attack enemies on its own, but then you can also designate enemies for it to attack specifically and kill. And that is fun to just have this buddy who's always helping you, but also sending them after people. And given the fact that with any kind of DLC drop like this, you'll end up in squads where multiple, I don't know if I ever had a squad of 4 Arbites classes, but I was definitely in ones with 3. And the craziness that is seeing 3 dogs just leaping all over the place, taking out enemies, is wild. But it's not ideal for actual play because you want a balanced team for dealing with bigger enemies and bosses, as evident by the fact that when I played with that team of 3, we did not do as well as me with a more balanced team. But that's basically what I would say is the gist of the class. There are other things as well, but for me, that is the core of it. You get this really satisfying shotgun, this great dog companion who can help out, and it's a nice addition to the game if you played it. However, the game itself, Darktide, is still a frustrating experience for me in the sense that I feel like it still has some performance drops. I'm playing on Xbox. I feel like it's not consistently smooth. It's overall pretty good, but I felt like it was a little off. But more so than that, the thing that's kept me from playing Darktide as much as I would like since it's come out is the lack of any kind of single player support, and that is still missing. I think 2 years ago they talked about working on it, and there's still nothing of the sort. If you are playing with at least one other friend, you can do a private group and then start a match with 2 bots, but you can't do that solo. You can't do a private match and just play by yourself, and that is incredibly frustrating because sometimes I just want to have a more casual session by myself. I don't want to depend on others or have them depend on me. I don't want people getting upset because I'm just fucking around. I'm not really trying to be the best I can be. And that sucks. And it becomes frustrating too because the AI could probably be this stupid as well. But I've been in groups where people are constantly blowing shit. They're lighting their teammates on fire all the time, and it's so frustrating. So while I do want to say, because the main thing is just to say, the class, good. I like the class. But the lack of a solo option, still, what are we doing here? You can play Vermintide 2 by yourself. Why is it not here? I don't know. And also, I kind of like Vermintide. I feel like there's less the guide, the direction in the missions does not feel as strong in Darktide as in Vermintide. But I can't remember what Vermintide 2 was, and it's also a sequel, so there's that ability to iterate on the first game. But I don't know the comparison of where Vermintide 2 was at this time in its life compared to Darktide, because Darktide's what, 3 years old? Is it just 2 years old? It's been around for a decent while now. But yeah, the Arbites class is solid. If you're a fan of the game, I don't know why you wouldn't pick it up. Next, How to Escape. How to Escape. 2 is a T. It's no 2 is a 2 is a number 2. Lost Submarine is one of those games, those escape room type games where one person is playing the game on their console or whatnot, and then another person downloads this companion app on their phone and helps out the other person with the information provided through that app. You can't play the game by yourself. You can by using the app, but then the challenge really isn't there, because the challenge of the game is not in the splitting of information. It is in your communication skills with the other party and your ability to explain what you need and their ability to find and explain what they see and how well you communicate with this other person. And because of that, very obviously, it's entirely dependent on that communication skill and rapport and all of that. And you know what? My almost 80-year-old father, I think he's just too old for this shit. I tried it. It didn't work out so well, but when we eventually got some things to work out and I was able to get him to explain things right and open up this area, got through the first area, there was a great sense of accomplishment. But of course, it is entirely dependent on who you're playing with. Disregarding that, I think based on what I played, it's very well designed. The game itself looks really nice. It has a very sketchy aesthetic that I think is very pleasant, runs well. The narrative I've experienced, interesting, engaging. And the app experience, using that myself, checking out and just looking at it, pretty straightforward enough. So definitely worth checking out if you are a fan of those types of games. And another nice thing about it is that you don't have to be local. It's not a local type experience. There is a part where you start, I think with each area, when you enter each room, you'll have a little cutscene and you're both meant to press the start or hold to start the cinematic at the same time so that you're on the same exact level. But you can do this over the phone, over a Discord call, or Xbox Live chat, PlayStation chat, etc. You don't have to be in the same room. As long as they have the app and you have a game or vice versa, you can play it together and have a hopefully good time, but also very well could be a frustrating time. But of the games of this nature that I've played, this one is definitely one of the better ones. And I think I played the first one, and this one just feels more polished from what I can remember. So a solid one of these if you are a fan and have the means to play one of these. And feel, I think we all have the means to play one of these, but you feel that the person you could play with is someone who would enjoy the experience, because they're the other person, the app person, they're not going to have as engaging of an experience as you are with your hands on a controller, moving a character around, engaging with the environment. They're going to be moving through menus. So it is a very different, less engaging experience for one of the people. Unlike something like, you can look at what is the name of that studio? Hazelight Studios. It Takes Two, Split Fiction, so on. It's not something where you're both doing something at the same time that is relatively similar. That's again How to Escape Lost Submarine. Then I checked out the newest Tomb Raider, the newest tables to the Pinball FX game, and they are Tomb Raider, as I just spoiled there. And you have 2 tables with this pack. One is set in her manor, and one is just set in a kind of like compilation of various type of temples and tombs that you raid and whatnot. Of the 2 tables, the manor is by far my preferred table. I think it is one of the best looking tables they've ever done. I love the look of it so much. However, I still have the same issue that I have with Pinball FX tables in that they feel so gamey in the sense that I feel like you really have to master or get somewhat decent at the nudging mechanic to keep the ball in play and not just have these really immediately shitty runs. And I don't feel like that's how Pinball FX was during the 360 generation. And it was something that happened during, I guess, the Xbox One generation or in even this generation. And I find that disappointing because it doesn't... Pinball FX used to be a series that I felt very comfortable playing casually. And now I don't feel... I never want to play it as just a casual pinball experience. I'll just play the pinball arcade. I also prefer the pinball arcade just because it's real tables and I prefer the physics and the general look of it because it's going for that more realistic aesthetic. But of course, you can't get that game anymore. Right? You might be able to still get the game in some tables, but I got all of the tables before they were delisted since they lost the license and then moved over to, you have the pinball or the Williams tables in Pinball FX now. I don't think you have all of them that were in Pinball Arcade. Maybe eventually you will. But again, ignoring that gripe, my own personal kind of gripe with Pinball FX from a mechanical standpoint, I think this is a really solid collection of tables, especially if you are obviously a Tomb Raider fan. But the Manor table, the little mini games you do on it, I think are cool. But just the overall look of it, I think it looks so good. And the Tomb Raider one, the more temple-based one, is also really solid. And that one I feel is more friendly in terms of ball outs and stuff like that, and keeping the ball in play on a more casual sense. So in terms of playing them, I think the Temple Adventuring one works better. But from an aesthetic, visual standpoint, the Manor. Ooh, love that one. Then I checked out Maximum Football, which is a free-to-play football game, American football game, that was in early access for a while, and I think it just hit its 1.0 launch. I got some codes for content, cosmetics, and stuff like that. But I've been curious about this for a long time just because I love football games, and I've been out of the Madden loop for so long. I was an NFL 2K person, and ever since that was killed, thanks to Madden securing the license, kind of just haven't cared as much about American football games. And I was excited to check this out from a mechanical standpoint if it might hit that space, even though without the NFL license, it is a hard sell. I remember when 2K tried to do that All-Stars Pro 2K, NFL 2K, I think it was called, with Legends. I think you had people like Troy Aikman in there, but it just wasn't the same. But ignoring all that, on a mechanical standpoint, it feels okay. The problem is, I played some matches against the AI. Offense felt fine. Defense felt terrible. And I don't know if they'll change it or if this is just the way it is meant to be. Defense just felt really slow and off and not good. You have a dive tackle, but your dive tackle does not feel like a traditional dive tackle. It feels more like a wrap-up tackle where you're trying to wrap up someone. And instead of diving to tackle them, you're kind of just falling forward. That's the sensation I got from both using it and the animation that was associated with it. So that felt really bad. And then the AI is stupid. I don't know what is going on with the AI. If it's trying to mimic annoying human players, because not even a human player would do this. The AI at one point had the ball and it was second quarter, less than 2 minutes. We already passed the 2-minute warning. They were making their way down the field, but they weren't using their timeouts, took their time to hike the ball, and they ended up not scoring a field goal or anything before the half ended. They just let the time run out. And I thought to myself, okay, what the fuck was that all about? They had 3 timeouts. Why didn't they use them? What was going on there? And when there was less than a minute left in the fourth quarter, tie game, they just tied it. They went for an onside kick instead of kicking it normally. So they didn't want to go into overtime. And sure, that happens sometimes, but that's a very questionable decision. I got the ball, but of course, they never fumbled the ball. I fumbled it multiple times. Don't know why that always happened to me. And when I was just rushing the ball to get into field goal position and get in the center of the field and get it so that the time would be down so that I could only do the field goal and there'd be no more time left, I fumbled the ball in that last play. Some dude picked it up and he just ran it for a touchdown the other time. I was like, what the fuck is this game? It just kind of fucking pissed me off. So, I don't know. The defense doesn't feel good. The AI is questionable. And I don't trust the fumble RNG as Maximum Football. Then I checked out a handful of visual novels, and I'm going to get through these quickly. So, Without a Voice it's probably the most polished of the bunch. Decent art, actual voice acting, though I am curious if the voice acting in this has some kind of AI aspect to it, or if the person doing the voice work just didn't care that there were errors in the writing. And I'm not sure if this is a native English speaking thing, but it makes me think, I think it might be natively English, because some of these things don't seem like localization or translation errors, but just poor writing skill errors where you are reusing a word multiple times in a short fashion. So it's just an example would be like, I just want you to know that just because you just did this, reusing stuff like that, but also referring to the woods as the wood, dropping the S a lot, but then at other times having the S there. There's a lot of weirdness in the writing that feels amateurish, and that was distracting for me. The story has its questionable content sides of things. There is implied incest, which will immediately turn some people off. I'm not a fan of that. So there's that. I don't know. The writing, more than anything, is what really irked me, because you have the errors, but on top of that, you have it's very wordy and flowery with just extra words that don't need to be there, and words that make it seem like the person who wrote this, or multiple people who wrote this, had a thesaurus next to them and were looking for more elaborate, just, they wanted to sound more scholarly. I don't know. It was distracting. And I wish I would have liked to. I look at a lot of visual novels as someone who I'm not saying I'm a great writer or anything, but I went to school for writing. I have a degree in it. I would like to edit some of the stuff. Hire me as your editor for your visual novel. Okay? Please don't. I mean, unless you can hire me and you want to hire me, who would? Yeah, you'll be very disappointed with the job if I do it. That's without a voice. Then there's Blankspace, which of the 3 I played is the one I was most interested in and enjoyed overall, even though from a visual standpoint, because it's in this it's a kind of escape room visual novel hybrid, point and click adventure type thing. But the room you're in is this very sterile, very white space. So it doesn't have a lot of visual pop to it. But it's cool. You wake up in this room with another person and you are trying to figure out what's going on and how to get out, and you're doing some point and click adventure, moving around the space, doing puzzles and all that. So it's a much more engaging visual novel from that sense. But then one of the issues with it is that your character who you played is kind of a douchebag. He's not a likable character. So it's not like you like playing as your character. And then the story itself wasn't drawing me in as much. Visually, it's okay. But just the general concept of it, I thought was interesting and engaging and worked well. So I think if you are someone who likes visual novels that are more interactive, it's worth a look. See. The last one though I played is disappointing in the sense that I think from a narrative standpoint, it's probably the most interesting. You are a human who is on this, I believe, like cruise ship, and there are a string of crimes happening. There are a string of crimes happening and whatnot, and you work with this robot detective to figure out what's going on. And the robot detective is a special type of robot. They're sentient, and in order to be considered human, the police office, the office, whatever, they said, if he can solve this mystery, what's going on here, they'll either immediately consider him to be human, give him human rights and all that, or consider it. And that stuff's interesting. However, from a visual standpoint, it's disgusting. And I hate it. I can't stand looking at it because it is the most lazy bullshit excuse for art in a game that I can think of. I don't know if they're using photos they shot themselves or using royalty-free stuff off the internet. In some cases, they use their creativity a little bit by taking a photo lens or something like that and putting it on a human body or some kind of shit like that. But what I don't like is that it's essentially photos and there might be layers on it so that you have this character's PNG over this background, whatever. But it's just photos with, I'm pretty sure, the poster edges Photoshop filter applied to them. I'm pretty sure it's that exact filter because that is what it looks like. And I one, hate that filter. Fuck that filter. And then two, because I hate that filter, I hate looking at this game. So while the story is interesting and I kind of want to see where it goes and all that, I don't want to keep playing it because I don't want to have to look at or even see in the peripheral while I'm focusing on the text. I don't want to see this ugly Photoshop bullshit in my peripheral. But that is a very personal thing, obviously. That is going to differ from person to person. If you care about that stuff, maybe you'd like that. Like that look. I don't know. But for me, it is an immediate turn off. But that is, again, Clash Robot Detective. I don't even know if I said the name of that one. Yeah. That is it. for what I've been playing. And that is it for this episode of the Pixelated Sausage Show. Once again, I am Marcus Nez. Y'all can find me pretty much everywhere at PX Sausage. If you enjoy this here show or any of the stuff I do and what have you, you can support me and my nonsense over at patreon.com/PXS. There you can get access to a monthly Q&A, a private Discord channel, along with some fancy Discord rules, and the random drop in the Patreon here or there depending on your tier. Or you could just support me if that is your fancy. That is again patreon.com/PXS. In addition to the Patreon, you can find links to the site, the YouTube, the Discord, and so much more over at pxsausage.com. That is the letter P, the letter X, sausage.com. But that is it. That is all. As always, thank you for watching or listening. I hope you enjoyed this here episode, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. But for now, adios, arrivederci, bye bye.
It's go time, go daddy.